You have to do that at the same.
No, not now.
Oh,
Thank you.
good eye.
Thankfully, we have another recording going on over here, and Darcy, I imagine that's why you had your hand up, that's what I was trying to figure out. So thank you.
We haven't done anything very interesting yet, Darcy. I mean, well, we have, but. All right, I'll just move on. Chad, what would you like to do for your report today?
Parks Master Plan is moving forward. We have another meeting coming up next Tuesday. The city council is almost through it all completely. They've made some minor adjustments so far. The new Parks Master Plan, as it's been adjusted slightly, is online and available for you to look at. And they intend on, they bring in the ordinance to that meeting. So the intention is to potentially vote on it and enact that. It'll take 2 votes over 2 different months, but that at least gets us started. So that process is working through. Other than that, we talked about the park a little bit. The development of the park across the way is coming along. We haven't done anything yet other than get things surveyed for the project. The equipment has been ordered and is being manufactured, and we should receive that by May. We're hoping, and then with the idea of opening this with maybe a grand opening, what have you, July 1st.
Wow.
So that'll be really nice, and it's really a unique playground equipment based in wood, more natural looking. It's pretty interesting. So
Question,
if you like it.
was there any more discussion about a restroom at the area?
Yeah, the restrooms, it's been noted that it's needed in the area and that's in the parks plan as well. But at this point, no, we're not going to install a restroom down there because we're going to wait until the greater plan or that park comes about through the planning commission and what have you. But temporarily, what I'm going to do, and for the summer anyway, is we're going to remove that beautiful building on wheels over there. And it's scheduled to go here in about a week or so. And I think that's the case. And we're gonna put up a couple of porta potties in there, best that we can.
Are you saying that's an improvement?
No, I didn't say that.
It's a different use.
It's
But
a necessity.
we'll treat it, it's a necessity and for the summertime, but yes, eventually a restroom somewhere in this area is gonna have to happen.
Okay.
And it's been planned for, but it's not being built yet and it's not required at the moment.
Anything else?
No, that's nothing else.
Carol, with those corrections that I gave you for the Parks Master Plan put in? Okay, thank you. There was a typing error.
The homeowners association.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, right.
Privately owned and managed.
Right, okay, so, the commissioners, do you have anything today that you would like to bring up? Talk about? Oh, excellent. Okay, the goals list, next on our agenda. Are there any additions, corrections, questions?
I'd make one comment, everybody have that handy. It's after the Sharon's excuse letter and after the public notice. This table is, yes, we've got some things in red which are highlighted because they're in process. Fire station and the associated land swap, annexation and zone change that will go with that is still in the works. And then the second red list on the list is consider adding riparian protection standards to the parks and open space zone, which is now in the parks plan for that zone. And that'll be part of the adoption of the parks plan includes that language. So that is almost ready to go off. And then the other red item there is the ODOT Highway 101 Safety Improvement Plan, which is moving right along towards wrapping up in June, July. And so that's almost finished. And don't expect any funding anytime on that or actual construction anytime soon. Because once you have a plan, now it needs to queue up for the ODOT budget. But we're going to be in a good position in some timely manner to start making those improvements. And I don't think there's anything else at the moment.
What about the section at the bottom that's been, seems to have been added, recommended goals for planning commission?
City council work sessions,
Those were,
goals.
yeah, so I surprised you with that one. Those were some things that I put down that came out of some of the goal setting with the city council. And I just picked those up, and in the future, I'll talk to you about them, that they were interested in looking at the comprehensive plan update in the future, but they understand it's a big deal, but not soon. It's something that they'd like to see on it. And then educational program, we guide them to the comp plan. So that's more for the public. Okay. Maybe we can work on something that helps people understand what Deer Heart's about and what our comprehensive plan is about. Maybe a better way to do that on the website or what have you. So,
Okay. I just hadn't seen those before, that's what I was asking.
yeah, I popped them in and forgot to talk about them.
I read it. Okay, any questions about the goals, any comments? All right, so Chad will fill us in later about his recommended goals. All right, visitors' comments. We have some visitors out there. Do any of them have any comments not related to the agenda items? No?
I see none.
All right, seeing none, we will move on. I have to find my script. This is my script. All right. So I'm going to open the public hearings. We have 2 public hearings tonight. I am going to read a disclosure statement. I'm reading one disclosure statement that will cover both of them. So if you need to declare something for either one of them, it will be this time. This is the statement. All persons, I haven't read this for so long, I forgot. All persons testifying shall be deemed parties to the application and must provide their name and full mailing address if they wish to be notified of the decision, continuances, appeals, or other procedural actions required by the code. The city zoning code specifies applicable criteria to be relied upon in making a decision. Those criteria and findings of fact are in the city staff report. Public testimony shall be limited to those criteria and findings of fact or to other city or state land use standards that the person testifying believes apply to the proposed land use action. Failure to raise an issue in person or in writing with sufficient detail to afford the hearing body and parties to the hearing an opportunity to respond to that issue precludes appeal to the city council or land use board of appeals or to seek damages in circuit court due to a condition of approval. Before the conclusion of the initial evidentiary hearing, any participant may ask the planning commission for an opportunity to present additional relevant evidence, arguments, or testimony that is within the scope of the hearing. The hearings body shall grant the request by scheduling a date to finish the hearing, a continuance to a time and date certain, or by leaving the record open for additional evidence, argument, or testimony pursuant to ORS 197.763, 6A through E. Do any of the commissioners need to declare a conflict of interest, conflict of interest in ex parte contact or personal bias?
No,
I visited both sites.
Right, did anyone else?
I drive by one every day.
Okay, me too. I visited both sites also. Okay, the audience, are there any challenges to the commission's ability to make an impartial decision? No. Okay. Moving on, we now will hear the staff report, and our first public hearing is 22-2P Grandmark partition application purpose. An application for approval of a minor land partition to divide one parcel into 2 on a parcel located on a private street named Grandmark Lane in a residential R1 zone. Carol.
Thank you, Mrs. President. Okay, just a little bit of, for new people, we have the staff report. And then there's stapled together several comments from what are usually staff comments before the staff report's written, so that we get everybody's input on the request. And then there's the application, which has the letterhead of Magyar Land Surveying. And admittedly, I'm a little surprised there's nobody here, but they did receive the materials in advance of the meeting. And the partition is in that Magyar, the drawing. It's in this Magyar holdout towards the back. Land division we're talking about. And, you know, familiar with these kinds of things, there's a lot of information on there, so don't feel overwhelmed, because it sometimes is hard to depict everything, and you gotta understand all those lines. Okay, so I will just summarize my staff report and then ask for any questions. The partition on Dry Mark Lane is on the east side of the highway, zoned R1. And the lots, it's going to run through the comments at the bottom of page 1 of my staff report. Is what I do is just kind of whip through the staff report. Really, two issues were raised, one by the building inspector and one by the city administrator, regarding the driveway at the end of this piece of property, which has a highway on the west end, and it has a piece of vacant land owned by the North Coast Land Conservancy on the east end. And so at the east end, the grade starts to go up, and fire district is a little concerned about where they're going to be able to turn around. So there is no, okay, the first thing to note of importance is Dry Mark Lane is just an easement that was never made a street. So it's a private easement just for the use of the property owners to have access to utilities. So that was done on years and years and years ago, and we don't do that anymore. That would normally be a street that's a public street. But this would be like the last division in this area over many years, and they're turning this last larger lot at the back east end into two. So there's not a lot we can do with any normal street improvement requirements because it's a private easement, not a public street. And anyway, so the fire district is concerned about how they're going to turn around when there's a grade increase, and so that's one issue that has been covered. And
Before we move, Karen, just one comment or question. I seem to see an email mention of a hammerhead up there somewhere.
yeah.
A sketch of a hammer.
It's not on the materials you have, but the applicant has shown in through my conversations with him what's there now and how they're going to have to widen it out to make it accessible with the grade. But in the end, until they have actually engineered drawings, it's going to be the fire district fire chief's decision, because he'll review those plans in detail if they get this approved. You won't see the final layout tonight. It's subject to the fire approval, fire chief's approval. Okay. And then the other concern there physically is there's a culvert that goes under the wetlands there. There's a wetland that crosses both properties on their west side. And there's a culvert under the easement that may or may not be able to handle additional traffic. And so one of the conditions of approval also in this final decision would be to verify the engineering of that culvert is satisfactory to take more traffic, including fire trucks turning around. And if not, they'll have to upgrade the culvert. But we're not making a decision tonight. We're leaving that to the fire chief and engineering. Okay, so from there, the wetlands are there. You can see them. I gotta say, over the years, we're doing a better job of making sure we get wetland delineations by an expert, and they do that. So even again, we're kind of restricted with what's already happened there, but these building envelopes that are drawn onto each parcel. You can see proposed building pad and existing structure. The parcel number 2 is the new parcel. And its building pad is pushed to the east, away from the wetland, and the existing family structure on the parcel number 1 in the south east corner is already there, and it's way past the 25-foot setback from the wetland, way beyond it. So that's good. The way these lots are shaped, they're big lots. They're staying away from the wetlands. The only house, there's only one new house added here. Okay, so that's an important part of this decision too, that they protect that wetland. Now, then we get into Northland Land Division transportation improvements on page 4, starting there. Detailed requirements normally, but again, since it's not a city street, it's not in the transportation plan, it's just an easement. That's a privately held easement. None of the street standards apply. It's a 30-foot wide easement. It's wide enough apparently for the homes. This is the last home that can go in there. There's no sidewalks planned. There's no street paving required. It's just off limits. It's in its own category here. And the only thing I would note out of the transportation plan, as you've heard recently, is, you know, we're hopefully going to get this railroad Trestle Avenue pedestrian trail, and we've actually had it come up 3 times already since the transportation plan was approved. So we might be piecing things together here someday. I hope I'm alive when that happens. But there's a pretty good chance I won't be. Anyway, you know, if in a perfect world, if the people who live on Broadmoor can walk over to that vegetable trail, ideally to get a 10-foot wide trail easement across this parcel to get to that trail. And there is an advantage because the North Coast Land Conservancy owns that eastern boundary property, and I know they'll be a good partner in our future trail plan. So that would be an ideal thing that I haven't heard any feedback from the owner about that condition that you'll get to in a minute. Okay, so that covers streets, and that's always the main thing in a land division. Recreation easements would be the trail, wetlands, we are out of, and I'm gonna go straight to the end. Just so you know the process, this is the first step in a legal land division. They get whatever is approved with conditions tonight, they come back to you to get the final stamp on their partition before it's recorded at the county, and so that we can make sure you're satisfied with the conditions that were attached to a decision. So that will come back to the planning commission. And we think that you can approve this land division subject to the 9 conditions of approval. 1 is just timing. They have a year to come back unless they ask for an extension. 2 is that the fire chief found concerns with the driveway and the grade, and so the final partition should be modified to include an asphalted driveway for the fire code and fire chief approval. 3, the applicant indicates the east end of the parcel need to be leveled to accommodate a dwelling and a septic drain field, so the city finds this may need to be engineered to in advance to assure the North Coast Land Conservancy property is not negatively affected as determined by the city building official before final plat submittal. So that, you know, these things have to be taken care of between now and when you see it again. Number 4, that's suggested, and maybe the word should be modified depending on your position. The parcel 2 include a 10-foot wide pedestrian easement for Broadmoor Lane property residents to access the future Trestle Drive Railroad Avenue recreation trail. Excuse me, number 5, the applicant shall determine if water access to parcel 1 is in a private utility easement. Now, this is just going back in time. The water that goes to parcel 1, I didn't explain this so well now, crosses another property. And it isn't clear to me that that person who's getting water across someone else's property has an easement for that water line up to Broadmark Lane. So I'm recommending that for that person's legal protection, that at least we find out if there should be an easement for that existing water line going to parcel 1. The other is culvert improvements over the wetland may be required as determined by City Public Works before final plat submittal. And no building permit may be issued until all required improvements are in place and approved by the city manager or designee or otherwise bonded in conformance with the subdivision ordinance. And those provisions are listed there out of the subdivision ordinance. Number 6 on trees, if more than 5 trees are being removed, the applicant is required to get a tree removal permit from the city. And except for noxious weeds, removal of more than 1,000 square feet of vegetation or excavation of more than 50 cubic yards shall first require a tree removal, excavation, and fill permit from the city administrator. 7, the building permit shall restrict the use of herbicides, pesticides, and other toxic materials, as well as dumping of debris or other materials in protected wetland areas. Number 8 is standard state statutes about monumenting the new property lines. And number 9 is also our standard lighting, let's see, drainage, stormwater, water mains, underground utilities, street lighting, street signs, potential easement, drainage, and damage to Broadmark Lane, all to be repaired or taken care of after any construction. So those are the recommended conditions of what would be a recommended approval for you tonight. And there's 3 options for your decision that based on what you've seen and read to approve it with those conditions, or as you might decide to modify those, continue this to a later date, or based on testimony and revised findings, because the findings in here are written for approval, that you would move to deny it. So with that, any questions before you go on, or?
Thank you, Carol. Up on screen, you didn't notice, Chad put up a picture. That would have been really helpful to have had in the package, because I stared at that for a long time this afternoon. What are we talking about? That would have been helpful if we, as a future reference.
I agree.
So you can see now what Carol is talking about when she talks about a hammerhead. There's the house down lowest, and it's the empty.
It's the one
Brown
between
spot.
the 2 driveways.
Yeah.
And so that will be widened and to both access the new house in that blank spot, and also made to have adequate width
Turnaround.
for the fire chief to turn around in the fire truck.
David, you had a question?
On the cover letter for the application here, the applicant's name and company name and reference spelled. But I think that might be important to have correct company name and applicant name.
On the first page of the staff report,
This page, yes. Page
You got the G and the Y, the tamale truck was going by again.
thank you. It is an unusual name.
All things on the.
Thank you, Art.
No,
Instead of
it is not.
May.
It's Hungarian.
Oh, I'm sorry.
The Magyar Republic was the Hungarian Republic before the.
Thank you for finding that. Cool. Oh, it's there twice, okay.
But is that water Gerhart City water or Warrington water?
City of Pure.
Figure, okay. And so there's the house on the lot that's not, it doesn't show on our picture, the house on the left edge of that screen, that's on the property already.
Yes, that's the Grunmark, I think that's John, the applicant's property,
Are you talking about this house?
I'm
over on the far left,
On the-
I can't see your cursor.
4011 or 4911.
That's, yes,
That's Jim
and that's the
Brown.
wetland in between.
I got you, okay.
And we should
So that
always-
water line goes through that property
To that
to
other
the
house.
new lot.
But
No.
the lot is on the right side. Up there nearly to the
Right.
top.
Right.
Okay, that's the lot.
The new house is gonna get their water line down. the
Oh,
street.
going down the road, and so the
Yeah.
existing,
It'll be okay, but I just thought it was odd that the other house was there without an easement
yeah,
across somebody else's property for water. And maybe that can be fixed, I don't know, but it's-
Oh.
you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Well, if there's something on paper, it would make it easier to avoid the disruption of that service with construction. workers.
Oh, yeah, yeah, I don't, yeah. I think it's probably done a long time ago.
Would that have made a difference since those three properties in a row are all owned by the same? They're all ground marks.
The applicant is the owner of the house.
I'm just talking about like the water line, like maybe.
Yeah,
that's what that is.
I mean, at the time that that house in the right-hand corner was built, and it got its water from across his property, there should have been.
Okay.
For the protection of the new owner. And if we can get it now, that'd be great. If we can't, we try.
The new water line will go right up Grunmark Lane.
Okay.
And be installed more with the meters located at the house. So the two new houses will not be responsible for a really long water line that way.
Didn't they say someplace in here that the water line that serves the two houses to the north was the one that was going to service that lot? That's what I remember reading someplace, so.
will that water line serve, do we have to have a hydrant? Hydrants are mentioned in here, does a hydrant have to be on that Grunmark property, the whole package? Or what's the distance to that a hydrant can be?
Fire chief looked at that and it was adequate.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, I think so.
There is a fire hydrant, that's the first thing that he looks at.
And the size of the line, because we got into a kerfuffle with that fellow over there on Palilla
Yeah,
about
that's,
not putting in a big enough piece of pipe.
he has to go through the city to install it. And so Mark McFadden will work with him on the line side.
And we don't try and determine that now because
Yeah. No, I understand.
sometimes it doesn't go anywhere. It's subject to the technical approvals.
There is a fire hydrant right here. He already installed one. When he did his first thing. Can you
Oh,
see it
okay.
there? It's that little red dot.
Yeah, I see it.
Yeah, I see, okay.
There you go.
Are there any more questions for Carol about the staff report?
I have a question. It's route number 4, which is the proposed 10-foot wide.
Yeah.
Pedestrian access. Since this is, would it make sense, since this is a property we're subdividing, to have 5 feet on each side of the, with 2 new properties? Instead of all 10 being on the new lot?
Do we have an opportunity to do that on something that's existing?
Not really. Yeah, would it be, you mean between what,
It would be.
existing out, 1 and 2?
Yeah, 5
Yeah.
feet on this side with Barry and then 5 feet on the new.
We can't go back and legally demand that of the property owner to the south.
Okay, so then I was confused. So the walking path isn't kind of in the middle of the potential 2 new lots. It's between Berry and the new lot, the walking path. So that's why you have to be to the new one, because the Berries.
Right,
Okay, that makes sense.
and it might be a little tight, I don't,
I believe the way that they set this up, that the front of the house It's actually on the south side, the entrances, so the front and rear setbacks will be 15 feet.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah, so
Yes.
the rear line, the rear yard will likely be where this line is between Berry and this property here. I'm sorry, I can't even say Berry.
Yeah.
The rear is up against North Coast Land Conservancy.
Yeah,
Yes.
so here's where the road or the line is. That would be the rear of the house.
Yeah, that is unusual, but it's because
Oh.
it's a long, narrow piece that I think
They're
they're,
gonna turn it and face towards the other house.
If they decide to face it a different direction, if it works, depending on what the city needs, then it would be at least a 5-foot setback on one side, 9 on the other. So there would be 5 feet there, but it would be right against the house.
Okay.
So why don't we just go down the hammerhead and ask for 10 feet going east-west to get to North Coast? rather than
yeah,
go between the
that's
property.
where that's the best place to put it, in that 15-foot side yard, right? Or a 15-foot front yard is what
This would be,
parcel 2, just going straight down the road, straight.
Okay, so if you didn't go straight down the road, but you took it between, where we're dividing the lots, is that what you're saying, Don?
That's what I
It's
was,
between the two lots that you're dividing,
Oh,
take a piece from one and a piece from the other, because the division hasn't been done yet.
well, but then you
No.
see, one, we don't have 10 feet, but it doesn't have to be 10, like you were saying. We have 9 feet the way this building envelope is shown, because there's an egress there. And it would make it quite a bit longer. I think it'd be preferable to just take it straight from Grand Mark Lane as a dead end there,
Straight through.
straight through, straight east.
That makes sense to me.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I mean, okay. Any other questions for Carol before we go on to hearing from any other people?
But I would like, if everybody agrees, that condition should be modified to make that clear.
Yeah, I think when we get her discussion as commissioners, we can change it, okay? So, thank you, Carol. Moving on, we do not have an applicant, is that correct, Chad?
That's correct.
that is correct.
Okay, so we don't have the applicant, so we won't hear from them. What we've got is what we've got. I will ask for proponents' comments. Is there any proponents out there? Nothing, Chad?
Nothing.
No,
Opponents? Nothing? Oh. Okay,
no comments.
and no neutral comments? Tom, this is no neutral comments. Anyway, all right, we don't have anything for the applicants rebuttal, so I will close the public hearing at this time. So now it is time for the commissioners to discuss this. You've heard from Carol. We've got the documents in front of me. I'd like to hear from everyone if possible, starting over with Russ. Russ, do you have anything that you'd like to say?
No more than I've already asked, no.
Okay, David, do you have anything?
No comments.
Don,
no,
Judy?
Nothing for me.
Harry?
No, I'm
Oh
fine.
my gosh, okay, so of course, but you know, here I am. So the maintenance of the road.
Let me say it, Ginny?
Yeah, Jenny. Correcting spellings and everything. Chad, you mentioned the maintenance of the road. And when I drove up there, of course, I managed to hit a couple of potholes today. Those roads not, I'm concerned about emergency vehicles, say the fire engine trying to get through, you've got these big potholes and everything on the road. Is that not a concern?
And we have requirements for them to maintain access for fire vehicles, so we have the ability that if the road does go south, to say that they have to fix it. But my point was to actually make it more clear to the people as well that we're coming into this, that this is not a city road, because people get into these situations and assume we're gonna maintain these. or upgrade them to asphalt eventually. Why isn't the city doing anything? So it was just more for communication as well.
Okay, okay. I certainly wouldn't be in favor of, rather than suggested on number 4 with the access, pedestrian access to the Trestle Drive Railroad Avenue Recreation Trail, to rather than suggest to put in required. My reasoning being is we fought really hard to get that easement on, was it Palm? No, whose property? Fanta's property, and we really worked hard for that as a commission to get access to that and look at that as planning in the future to have that.
I don't have a problem with that.
Same here.
Okay, so how should that be worded, Carol?
I would say, number 4, the applicant shall modify the plan. So, to parcel 2, such that includes a 10-foot wide pedestrian access easement for Broadmark Lane property residents to access the future trail directly east of the wording will be more correct, directly east of the end of Broadmark Lane to the east property line. That sounds like too many words, but I'll fix it.
We will,
It will go
it will not be
straight,
suggested, it will be
and it is required,
required.
shall modify the plan, and we'll be able to see it again when they come back,
Okay.
make sure.
Is there anything else from anyone? Do I have a motion, one way or the other?
I'll make the motion that we approve with the conditions as modified.
And as stated in the original report.
Yes.
All right.
I'll second.
So Terry has made the motion to accept the recommendations with the modified number 4 condition. And David, you seconded, right? Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. It is passed unanimously.
Could I make a suggestion?
Yes, sir.
Could we put the word out that it's nice if the applicant shows up?
I think
Believe
that
me,
they always, yes,
yes.
I mean, I'd like to see who they are.
Usually they're tripping over themselves to get here.
right.
We invite them to the party and recommend that they attend.
Okay. Maybe put it in capital letters. Could it be, we can't require them to come, but we can suggest they come, is that it? Okay.
Well, I suppose you could say you don't want to hear it
Or that, yeah, there was a time.
unless they're here.
Now, we could have continued.
We have done that.
We have done that, and didn't approve it because we had questions and nobody was there.
But I think this, if you had a lot of questions, we would recommend that.
This is a little too straightforward to get to that level.
This one is straightforward. Maybe we'll bring up something more interesting on the next one here.
Okay.
All right, so our next public hearing, 22-3B, Shelton setback variance. An application by the contractor for approval of a variance to accept a side yard setback violation of dwelling that was constructed with a side yard setback of 4 feet 1 inches, 11 inches less than the required 5 feet. Carol, would you like to make the staff report?
Thank you, Mrs. President, and I will just admit, all right, off the bat, she found at least 2 places where I said 4 feet 11 inches of a setback, when it should have always said 4 feet 1 inch of a setback. 11 inches less than required 5 feet. So it's a 5-foot setback, they've got a 4'1", and they are 11 inches less than required. Okay, this is a house that's been built. This is not ideal. We would never normally bring a variance to you after the construction of the house. This is a rare one that the city had to say, sorry, you can't just slip this by. And there's probably more to it than that. But anyway, so the house is built and it's substandard on the one side. And rather than get into all the details of right now, the findings and the criteria, let's just make sure we're all looking at the right thing. And so on the sketch in the back, titled, Bureau Loop Road. New house is here on the side, the west side of this property line, and there's an existing house here, owned by Ryan Osborne. And so the setback goof is right in here between this corner of the house and the property line. And apparently what happened is there were stakes that were taken out to remove a tree and they were put back in the wrong place. Well,
There was
When
two
When did
sets,
that happen?
I'm not sure, but there was essentially two sets of stakes. One was marking the boundary line, I'm not sure what the other one was. When they put the stakes back in, they swapped those.
accidentally.
It was prior to the farms being inspected, so they saw that when the building commission saw the stake in there with the setback.
Was this a new house that was built?
Yes,
Yes,
So it's a-
How do you know he didn't move the stakes?
he wouldn't be as interested in it.
They did move the stakes.
Someone did.
But it
Someone
was
did when
like
they were doing that.
accidental, because they cut the tree down, they took the stakes away to get out of the
Yeah,
way
I
of the tree.
understand. How do you know it was accidental?
That's what we get to decide.
When he figured it out, he came to us.
I'm suspicious.
I can
It's
tell you.
like, he did it November 2020. Don't way I go about. So it's been a year and a half.
You know, there's no real good reason to do that. I mean, to think about it.
It's not. It's not really.
And you learned the hard way. I mean, this is, nobody wants to knock down a house. They've obviously fix it. So we don't like bringing you something that's already de facto done, but, we have to, it's everything we.
I had a hard time understanding the letter that the neighbor,
Blake.
what is he complaining or not?
No,
complaining?
he's-
Not complaining, he's for it.
He's for it.
All right,
He's not against it.
all right.
Yeah.
And I don't have a problem with it.
Yeah, and so it's not, you know, for Judy or anybody, this is not normal. We don't bring these kind of things after the fact. We don't like it any more than anybody does, so, but, to make it good, I think that Jonathan did a pretty good job of apologizing.
He's a very sincere person.
Yeah,
I've met him.
yeah, I believe you. And so, you know, here you have these criteria, and variances are not meant to be easy to grant. But in this case, it's hard to find a reason to tear something up for an 11-inch error. It was
No,
not
I,
intentional, as far as we know. And so I'll leave it at that. I think my.
So is that your staff report?
Well, for Judy, I should say more, but, it's all there for findings. You know, again, we don't normally recommend approval of variances. I think the commission's had a few before, and usually they say no. But this is not one that makes sense to go to the trouble to
No, I
prove
agree.
it.
Would it be easy to explain a situation where it would make sense to deny?
Yeah, I mean, I can't think about it off
If,
the points of
maybe
variance.
if they, in this particular case, let's say they were trying to get a bigger house the whole time, and then they took everything right to the edges as far as they could. And then they take it under 11 inches to finally get what they want, if that was provable anyway. You know, that would be one thing, if they gained something, but when I did the 2 site visits, I couldn't figure out where they were actually gaining anything other than those 11 inches that they accidentally did. It didn't help them on the other side. It doesn't even really help them too much on that side, they're closer to the boundary, so. I couldn't figure out why they would do it on purpose.
that's what they do in Cannon Beach.
Well, the beauty of this one is Ryan's house is already more than required setback.
Right.
So you're meeting the standard we have between houses now with the 2 structures there.
Well, I guess
And
you
the other
should
person
have-
isn't complaining.
Nobody's, yeah.
I need to stick to my script.
Sorry,
Okay.
I've
a
already
little
read
bit
it.
casual.
I know, but I need the staff report. Are you done with the staff report?
Any other questions right now?
Do we have any more questions for the staff report? Do we have any applicant? Do we have an applicant? No applicant. Do we have any proponents? No. Do we have any opponents? Any neutral comments? All right, I have now closed the public hearing. I have some comments. And I talked to Carol about this earlier. My concern is, I think I'm hearing it from everyone else, I don't want this to set precedent. I don't want us to see another one coming in and saying, oh, it's an accident. You know, and so this would not set precedent, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
It doesn't set precedent. Each individual variance is a variance on its own.
Okay. And did you actually measure the distance between the houses? Or did anyone?
The
The building official.
building official.
Did they? Because that was the narrowest 17 feet I've ever seen in my life. It didn't look like 17 feet, but.
Yeah, he measured.
Okay, all right.
And do they always measure?
all
Yeah,
right.
and it was measured, so when they first staked it out, it was measured then, and then the forms got
poured.
put in.
Right, but no, I mean, the distance between the two houses.
Yeah.
Okay, when I looked at it today, it looked like it was real narrow.
Well,
Did
and
you-
keep in mind it's foundations, so there might be the,
Oh.
right? It's the foundation that has the separation. So
Right,
You might
but it's
see some,
still pretty narrow, but anyway, okay, and my only other question had to be with why wasn't this caught before? Was that a good question?
Yeah, I think that's.
I know that in our neighborhood, we know we have houses that are sitting in the setback. And then, you know, we take the tape and everything, and
Love to know where those are.
would you?
Yeah, I would. That would be helpful for us so that we can go through and make sure that in the future, if there's any building changes or any changes to those properties, we can address that then.
Okay.
Or at least attempt to address something, then
Yeah.
it's a little bit too late.
Right, I mean, the houses were built and, you know, that was the way it was. Okay. Comments from anyone? Yes, David.
Every chance I get the opportunity, I will repeat myself into the record that my attitude toward variances is default negative. Applicant's job is to convince me to change my mind. And that's why applicants should show up, change my mind so I don't automatically always vote no on variances. That's the only comment I had. And the other was about the precedent. And again, letting people know that you're gonna get a no vote until you convince me otherwise. Maybe that will slow it down about seeking variance. We can always seek a variance, and we can always seek them. So for the record.
Thank you, David. Anyone else? Yes, Don.
I have a couple of questions. How was this discovered? Was it the building official, inspector?
It was the builder of Osborne. That's how.
the neighbor.
So
Okay,
they
great.
talked amongst themselves, and then the building official was contacted, he went out there, and then it went from there.
Okay, if, let's say, Blake Osborne objected to this variance, would that would impact our
That one might
decision.
influence
It
everybody's decision.
would affect mine, I would have said no.
Right. And if a no decision would be made, then they're gonna have to tear off that east end of the house and start over. Or that little part. From the line, it looked like the, like south 11 inches, kind of, and then it kind of creates a little triangle.
Yeah.
It doesn't cover the whole side of the building, right? And I'm with you guys as far as precedence is, I don't like that idea. And so when this kind of thing happens, is there a penalty for that?
Good question. $1,000 fee to get this reviewed by the planning commission.
A zone code violation is $500 per day for the offense. So if you deem that it was not, that a variance was not given to it, and they didn't do anything, they would receive $500 violation each day.
So that would be once the variance would be denied.
Yes.
Okay. But just for generally building over the line,
we don't allow it. And
There's no penalty for doing that, and then.
there wasn't a penalty established because this process was started. We didn't issue a penalty for a zone code violation.
Until it comes here.
Correct.
Okay.
Because if you allow it, then it's not a zone code violation. If you give
And
it
you're
variance.
authorized to allow it.
Right.
Chad has told me a story about another builder that built the house close to the road. And you made him remove the front of their house, right? That's what you,
We caught it earlier, and that was a real simple one. Generally, the building official checks these as it's going on. He does every time. And he checks the forms before everything is poured. He checks where the forms are being laid out. And in this case, because of the stake, the building official pulled it to the stake that was in the ground and believed it was 5 feet. It turns out that 2 stakes were swapped somehow, and I'm not even sure how that happened, but so it became 11 inches closer. We would have had to move their entire set of forms over, and that's what we did to those other folks. They had just finished all their forms. They'd spent 2.5 days putting them in there with their labor. Building official caught it, and so we made them tear out their forms and push everything back and redo it. That was the only other occasion that I know of an incursion like this. It doesn't happen very often. This was just weird, not sure.
Well, with the frenzy of construction going on these days, I'm surprised this hasn't come up more often,
Oh, we're good.
to tell you the truth. You guys
We
are
generally do a pretty good job.
Well, they always have to have an inspection before they pour. So it's, you know, whether it takes a week to get the inspection or 2 hours, you know, you still have an inspection.
But then there have been times when my contractors have been allowed to take pictures of
Instead
the
of-
situation on the ground in lieu of an inspection. Now, that doesn't apply to every situation. I don't think it would apply to this. But sometimes, you know, when the building official can't get there and you gotta keep going.
We actually,
Well, sometimes it's stringed, so sometimes the owner doesn't have the actual pins put where the house goes. They have it stringed. In this case, they had the pins put where the house was going. So the surveyor goes out there and pins where the house is to be placed. So it was, you know, it's kind of different.
It's the smartest way to do
Mhm.
Unless they pull them out and put them back in the wrong spot.
it. Oh, this is a candy beach.
okay. Any other comments?
I'll make a motion and we hold our nose and approve it.
I don't think that's, would you like to restate that motion?
I like it.
No, I wouldn't.
No, you wouldn't. I don't know what you're moving though. Are you?
Just put the application.
I think I heard a second on that motion.
Excuse me, wait a minute. Where's the staff report? I lost the staff report.
There weren't any conditions on it, were there?
No, recommendation. Okay, so you recommend, based on the findings of the staff report, the planning commission approved the variance request for 11-inch side yard setback violation.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So
Terry has moved in. Who's second?
I
Russ? Russ seconded. Any more discussion? All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. Nay. I wanted to see the applicant.
yeah.
All right,
Couldn't have said it any better.
huh?
You could not have said it any better.
Okay, moving forward.
Did you follow that one?
Oh, yes, I closed that, before we had the discussion. Yes, I did.
She closed it right away, I think.
Yeah, there wasn't anyone there. We have no unfinished business, no new business. Any further concerns of the commission? We have no questions for the land use attorney. We are adjourned at 6:57.
So move.
I don't need that motion. We don't have more agenda.
What, 1 hour meeting?
So we're on in May.
Is that unusual?
They
Don't get
don't
used
have
to
any
this.
hearings.
The 1 hour
I'm
meeting.
thinking that it's going to be a report
Oh,
on the
hi.
fire station UGB
Oh, yeah, for-
zoning annexation.
How long were you waiting there?
What?
Were you waiting there for very long?
Oh, just a few minutes. No big deal. I've been doing other stuff.
No.
Good.
It's
The fire
coming
station
home,
site,
Right.
Tell you what.
if the bond passes and they build,
Oh, it
that's
is.
gonna rezone.
Okay.
And we're gonna have a
I,
presentation on the progress of that.
Until I figure out that.
We do have a site, right?
We have a site, yeah.
Obviously, some of this might come back.
So get out there and vote.
Am I-
Or did I get it by mail today?
Thanks, Russ.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, I get mail
See you later.
every day.
See you later.
For the fire station, against the fire station.
Terry.
See you later. I didn't meet you. I'm Terry.
Hi, Terry and Judy.
Nice to meet you. I've
I
seen
mean-
you last.
I mean,
Well, thank you.
I received more forward than against.
That's great.
Our school people,
Now turn it off.
the post.
yeah,
It's a way to make more friends in the community.
exactly.
The good news about the.
I think for your guys' suggestion, what I'll do is I will email them the day of the hearing. And
Now, tell me how, I didn't really want this to be made in public, but how did,